All right, so picture this. It's 333 BCE, Alexander the Great, just 23 years old, marching through modern-day Turkey.
Yeah.
And his goal, to conquer the entire Persian Empire.
Yeah.
Talk about ambitious.
Hugely, hugely ambitious. I mean, this is the Persian Empire we're talking about.
Right.
This was the superpower. Alexander's forces were outnumbered and miles from home. It really was a David and Goliath situation.
Totally. A total underdog story.
Yeah.
And this battle, the Battle of Aetius, it's considered one of Alexander's most brilliant wins strategically.
Absolutely.
You sent over some seriously fascinating research on this. Where do we even start?
Well, you have to start with the Persian army under King Darius III. Historians estimate the size of his army. Are you ready for this?
Give me.
100,000 to 600,000 soldiers.
Okay, my brain I can't even process those numbers.
Yeah.
Alexander's army was not even close to that.
40,000 men, well-trained, incredibly loyal.
Right.
But yeah, totally outnumbered.
I mean, that's still a lot of people, but
Oh, yeah.
the Battle of Aetius, I feel like it really shows us that raw power, just having the numbers,
Right.
doesn't always mean you're going to win.
It's not about size. It's how you use it.
It makes you think about your own life, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a huge project at work or you're facing a big competitor or something, it just seems impossible. You kind of wonder if you should even bother.
Yeah, it can be intimidating to be up against a larger force, but that's what makes the Battle of Aetius so interesting. Alexander understood that strategy and using your strengths effectively can be more powerful than just sheer size. And his choice of battlefield, which we'll talk about, that really illustrates that point.
Yeah, the terrain of a battle. I mean, I would imagine that is a huge factor.
Oh, absolutely.
So it wasn't just by chance that he chose to fight there, was it?
Not at all. He was using the terrain as part of his strategy. The Battle of Aetius, it was fought on this narrow plain stuck between the mountains of Amanius and the Mediterranean Sea.
So you're saying it's a trap?
Kind of, yeah. It was a huge bottleneck, really. Imagine trying to move hundreds of thousands of soldiers in a space like that.
I mean, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. Total chaos. It'd be like trying to leave a stadium after a concert with everyone trying to squeeze through the exits at once.
Exactly, gridlock.
So I can see why it's considered a strategic blunder on Darius's part to allow himself to be boxed in like that.
Oh, absolutely.
But even with a smaller army, a more, like you said, well-trained army,
Right.
Alexander still needed to have some serious tactical skills to pull off a win, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's talk battle tactics. What about this Macedonian phalanx I've read so much about?
Oh, it's legendary. So picture a wall of soldiers, shoulder to shoulder.
Okay.
And they have these incredibly long spears. They're called sarissas, some of them extending up to 20 feet.
Get out. 20 feet.
Yeah, they could strike multiple enemy rows at once. In close quarters, like at Aetius, it was a terrifyingly effective formation.
Okay, so we're talking about a literal wall of spears.
Basically, yeah.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for the Persians facing them.
It would have been terrifying.
But knowing Alexander, and from what you've told me, he was a brilliant military mind. He didn't just rely on this one tactic, did he?
Oh, absolutely not. Alexander was a huge proponent of combining different fighting styles, what we call now combined arms.
Oh, interesting. So he knew how to keep the Persians guessing. He wasn't afraid to mix things up.
Exactly.
He was a bit of a military innovator in a way, right?
He was. Yeah, he was. And one of his most effective innovations was the companion cavalry.
Okay, so we have to talk about the companion cavalry because this wasn't just a random group of guys on horses, right?
No. These were not just any horsemen. The companion cavalry, these were the elite of the elite.
Okay.
They were comprised of noble Macedonians. They were highly trained from boyhood in horsemanship and warfare.
Wow.
Essentially, they were the special forces of their time, incredibly skilled, fiercely loyal, and completely vital to Alexander's success.
And I think I read somewhere that Alexander himself led the companion cavalry charge. Am I remembering that right?
You are. And this is a great example of where you see his strategic genius come through, his understanding of psychology and warfare and how it all ties together. The companion cavalry, with Alexander at its head, were a force to be reckoned with. Imagine you're a soldier and you see your king, your leader, charging into battle alongside you.
Yeah, that would either make you run for the hills or
Step up.
or step up right alongside him. Yeah. Talk about leading by example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to tell your army to charge into battle, but to actually be there with them, that's next level.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure it spoke volumes to his troops. But even with a solid strategy and a well-trained force, like we've been talking about,
Right.
battles are unpredictable.
Oh, yeah?
And Darius, he wasn't just going to give up, right?
Right.
He saw what he thought was a weakness in Alexander's lines, and he decided to go for it.
Okay, so what happened? This is where it gets really interesting, right?
Mm.
Because it's not enough to just have a plan. Things change. You've got to be able to adapt.
Exactly. And that's what Darius was counting on, that Alexander wouldn't be able to adapt. So he launched this all-out assault on Alexander's right flank. He assumed, again with his superior numbers,
Right.
that he could just overwhelm that section of Alexander's army. It was a bold move.
Yeah.
It could have worked.
Okay, so what did Alexander do? Did he stick with the original plan or?
So here's where you really see Alexander's flexibility on the battlefield.
Okay.
He immediately realized the danger, and he didn't panic. He didn't hesitate.
Great.
He reinforced his vulnerable flank, and then, get this,
Yeah.
he personally led a countercharge against the Persians.
Wow. So he was right there in the thick of it with his men.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't just giving orders from a distance. He was right there on the front lines. And I think that says a lot about him as a leader, you know?
Yeah.
He wasn't asking his men to do anything that he himself wasn't willing to do.
That's huge. I mean, it makes you think about successful teams in any field, really, whether it's sports or business or even just,
Yeah.
groups of friends.
Social movements, anything.
The ones that really achieve extraordinary things, they're unified.
Right.
They have that shared sense of purpose.
Right. They're all on the same page.
And it all comes back to leadership. Leaders who are willing to use that phrase, get their hands dirty, who are really present.
Yes.
They earn a different level of respect and commitment from their team. You can't just demand that kind of loyalty.
It has to be earned.
Exactly.
And that's what Alexander understood.
So we have Alexander leading this countercharge, facing down the entire Persian army. What was going through Darius's mind at this point?
Well, his plan had backfired, right?
Yeah.
He expected Alexander's lines to crumble,
Right.
and instead he's met with this fierce resistance led by Alexander himself.
I can only imagine what must have been going through his head. It's like your opponent just pulled a move that you didn't even think was possible.
Yeah. It was a complete shock. And this is where we really see the psychological impact of the battle.
Okay.
Because Darius, the king of Persia, considered a god king by his people.
Wow.
He panics. He sees his attack failing. He sees Alexander's countercharge, and he completely unravels.
So what does he do? He surrenders.
He flees.
He abandons his army in the middle of a battle.
Abandons his army in the middle of a battle, leaves them leaderless. Talk about a turning point.
I mean, talk about a blow to morale. If I'm a Persian soldier and I see my king, who is supposed to be, divinely appointed by the gods,
Right.
running away,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, maybe I should get out of here too.
Exactly. It was absolutely devastating to the Persian army's morale. They were leaderless, they were demoralized, and they were facing this relentless enemy who was completely energized by Alexander's courage.
Right, because on the other side, you've got Alexander, who's staying calm under pressure.
Exactly. He's decisive, he's adaptable, and he sees an opportunity, and he seizes it.
So it's really a study in contrasts
Really.
between these two leaders.
Exactly. One of them crumbles under pressure, the other one thrives.
It's easy for us to sit back and analyze this now, but in the heat of the moment,
Oh, yeah.
with everything on the line,
Right.
it must have taken incredible strength and resilience to stay calm and rational.
You're absolutely right. And that's what's so remarkable about Alexander. It's one thing to make a plan, but it's another thing entirely to be able to deviate from that plan when you need to.
Right.
To think on your feet and to improvise and to make the right call when it really matters.
That's such a valuable skill even today, isn't it? I mean, think about the world we live in. Everything is constantly changing. You have to be able to adapt.
It's essential. Whether you're running a business or just navigating your own personal life, being able to roll with the punches.
Right.
That's what makes all the difference.
So we've got leadership, we've got strategy, we've got adaptability. It all comes together in this battle.
It really does. But it's not just about those things. It's also about understanding your strengths and knowing how to use them strategically.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me more.
Yeah.
So Alexander was a master strategist, but it wasn't just about outmaneuvering the Persians on the battlefield, was it?
Right. It was about understanding the bigger picture, the psychological game.
Ah, so like psychological warfare.
Exactly. He knew that to truly win, you had to break the enemy's spirit, their will to fight.
And what better way to do that than to have their god king run away in the middle of the battle?
It definitely sent a message. And don't forget about that Macedonian phalanx we talked about.
Oh yeah, that wall of spears.
Can you imagine being a Persian soldier? You're already freaked out because your king just bailed on you, and then you have to face that.
It would be terrifying. I mean, just the thought of fighting in those kinds of close quarters.
Absolutely. But think about it from the other side, too. If you're one of those Macedonian soldiers in that phalanx,
Yeah, you're packed in there tight.
you're a unit. Your shields are interlocked. Your spears are pointing out. You're moving together as one unstoppable force.
It must have been an incredible feeling.
Empowering.
Yeah, empowering. I think that's the word. It's like the difference between feeling like a cog in a machine
Mhm.
versus being part of a team.
Exactly. And that sense of unity of purpose, it's a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
On the battlefield or anywhere, really.
It makes you wonder if that's part of what drew people to Alexander, that charisma, that ability to inspire such loyalty.
Oh, absolutely. He was more than just a military leader. He was a symbol.
Right. He represented something bigger than himself.
Exactly. So what are the big takeaways here? What are the enduring lessons of the Battle of Ischus?
Yeah. What can we learn from all of this?
Well, on a tactical level, it shows us the importance of strong leadership, smart strategy, and using your resources effectively. Alexander was outnumbered, remember? But he used the terrain to his advantage. He combined his forces in a smart way, and he led by example. That's huge.
It is huge. And it makes me think about those of us who aren't exactly military strategists.
What about our everyday battles?
That's what's so great about history. These stories, they hold up a mirror to our own lives, even thousands of years later.
Right. So how does the Battle of Ischus apply to us today?
It reminds us that we are capable of so much more than we think we are. We have this well of strength and resilience inside of us, but we don't always tap into it.
I think that's so true. It's easy to get bogged down in the what-ifs,
Yeah,
the self-doubt.
absolutely. But the Battle of Isis reminds us that sometimes the biggest victories come from facing those fears head on, from turning a perceived weakness into an advantage. It's about adaptability. It's about resilience. It's about the power of the human spirit.
It's about having the courage to show up, even when you're outnumbered, even when the odds are stacked against you, because you never know what you might achieve.
That's a great way to put it. The Battle of Isis. It's a testament to the power of courage, of strategy, and of the belief in our own potential. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive. It's been incredible learning about Alexander the Great and his victory at Ischus.
It's a fascinating story.
It really is. Till next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.